I would say that it doesn't happen like in the movies. There's no white van that pulls up and snatches your child off the street. That doesn't happen anymore. In reality, it happens in your home. It could be happening right now to your children through social media, through game apps. That's where the perverts are stalking your children now. They go in there and groom your child. It may take months to groom your child. And at some point, the predator talks that child into leaving and meeting them somewhere. And that's where they'll never be seen again. Unfortunately, a lot of parents put their children up for trafficking.
Why?
For exchange for drugs. They'll say, if you give me these drugs, then I'll let you have my child for an hour. And that's where a lot of 2-year-olds, 3, 4, 5-year-olds get caught up into the trafficking. It is through their parents wanting to satisfy their drug addiction. Human trafficking is outpacing drugs as far as income for these organizations. You can sell a pound of or an ounce of cocaine for X number of dollars, but you can sell a human body over and over again for years. That a lot of these people who are kidnapped and taken in human trafficking, once they've reached their expiration for the usefulness, then some of them are put into organ harvesting.
Welcome to the Ravi Athale Perspective, the show where we go beyond the headlines, beyond the surface, to find the real human story underneath. I'm your host, Ravi Athale, and every single week I sit down with someone who has lived a story that the world needs to hear. If you're watching this for the first time, welcome. Hit the subscribe button right now. Today, my guest is David J. Story. He's the author of the Omega book series, a 3-part thriller that dives deep into the world of human trafficking and vigilante justice. He's also the host of the podcast, The Secret World of Human Trafficking. And the reason he's doing all of this work, writing, podcasting, fighting, will stop you in your tracks. David, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, pleasure is mine, David. David, before all of this, the books, the podcast, the mission, who are you? Tell me about the David that existed before the fight.
The David before was just an average person, went about my business, trying to make a living, working, married, more or less staying to myself. I was a type that really didn't want to get involved in things. I just wanted to do my job, come home to my wife, just a normal person. That's what I consider myself, a normal person. You know, some people may disagree with that, but
Yeah,
I think I had a normal life. Yeah, I'm a commoner.
And I love that because you are describing as someone who has living a relatively normal life. And then something happened that most of us could never imagine surviving. I have to ask about it. And I want to ask with the care it deserves, David. Turning point was when your wife was killed.
Yes.
Can you take us to that moment? Because I think my audience needs to understand not just what happened, but what it felt to be the person left standing after something that devastating happened.
It started off as a normal day, and she was at work. She was working part-time at Walmart, and she called me and said that she was leaving work and on the way home. She normally calls whenever she gets in her car and say, I'm in my car safe on my way. She never did call, and I was able to track phone. We had that all set up on both our phones so we know where each other is. It was a safety thing for both of us. And I kept waiting and waiting. I called several times. She never did answer. And I brought up the tracking and I saw that she was leaving. And I said, okay. And then she didn't turn where she normally did to come home. And she kept going straight. And I knew the location where she was heading was to a hospital. So I waited and saw where the tracker ended up at the hospital. So I jumped in my vehicle and headed to the hospital. And come to find out, she was hit by a car leaving Walmart. And she was right there in the crosswalk. And she was in a coma for about 2.5 years before she passed away. And during that time is at the beginning of COVID. So at work, I was still working. I was in security at the time. So my job was required to come in, even though my building was pretty much empty.
Which year?
It was 2020.
Okay. When the COVID hits for the first
Yeah,
time.
it was right after it had just hit just a few months.
Okay.
I was dealing with Sharon being hit by a car and being in a coma. And the isolation she was in, it worked out where I was able to go visit her. I had to get the shots, which I didn't want to, but I had to get the shots in order to see her. I went and visited her every weekend I could. They moved her about 2.5 hours away after about 6 months. So I drove up there to see her every weekend and then came home. And I did this for about 2.5 years. And dealing with the COVID, being alone, that's when I started looking for something else to do. Coming home to an empty house every night and having the worries about her. And I just needed something to occupy my mind.
I want to sit with that for a moment, David,
Mhm.
because I think what you have described is something that most people will never face. And yet, instead of collapsing inward, which no one would have blamed you for, you turned that grief outward into something that protects other people. This is remarkable, David. So tell me, David, how does a person make that choice?
I guess it was out of necessity. I stayed on social media, Facebook and all like that. And I kept seeing reports every day of 4 or 5 children missing. And after a while, I started wondering what is going on? What's happening to them? Why are they showing up missing so often? I can understand a child every once in a while or an adult just disappearing, that every day, 4 or 5, and that was just in the Atlanta area. And so I started doing some research and found out about human trafficking, which I knew about it a little bit, but I really didn't know what it was and what all it covered. So after digging into that and started doing a lot of research and all like that, I thought something needs to be done. I kept looking for books about it, and there was really nothing out there. There was a couple of movies out there that talks about it a little bit, like Taken and Sound of Freedom.
Yes.
Those are some popular shows and movies about trafficking and being kidnapped. But I thought something needs to be done. And I didn't have nothing else to do. I needed something to occupy my time instead of sitting there just worrying about Sharon every minute of the day, which would drive me crazy. So I wanted something to take my mind off of her as much as I could and then focus on something else. And I just got interested in it and that went from there. I always wanted to write a book. Never have gotten past 2 or 3 pages before.
So COVID arrives and the world stops. Most people are learning to make bread or watching Netflix. You sit down and start writing a novel about human trafficking. So, David, why not manifesto, a petition, a march? What made you pick up a pen and say, I'm going to write a story?
I've got 2 sons and 3 grandchildren.
Okay.
And when I was thinking about and seeing all these missing people, I thought, what would happen to them? My grandkids at the time were at the age where they're prime targets to be kidnapped and forced into trafficking. And I thought, what would I do? How would I react if it would happen to them?
Yes.
And I thought I would just go after, do whatever I could to go after them. And that's where I thought, that's Vigilante. I thought, that's not totally right to do. But I kept looking at the laws and everything and how a lot of times people who get arrested for trafficking or whatever, they get off just with a slap on the wrist. And the victims, they have to suffer the rest of their lives.
It's not only the first world or the second world or the third world, it's always the victim who suffers, not the one who has done the crime.
Right.
It's the predator who never pays, it's the victim. The accused always, by some means, get it through, but the victim has to pay for it. What do you think of it?
The predator, they get arrested sometimes and they have to spend some time in jail. And that's nothing compared to what a child has to go through. They have to go through the pain and suffering of sexual abuse or physical abuse. And the physical abuse, it heals after a time. You may have a few scars or whatever, but the emotional abuse never heals. It continues the rest of their life. And so that's something that can never heal. That's something that will always be in their mind.
That's right. And I think it became a container that could hold something that was too big for real life to carry cleanly. I think that is one of the most powerful things a writer can do. And I want to dig into the books now because I have read about them and they are extraordinary, David. Let me introduce the audience to the Omega series. At the heart of those books is Jack Davidson, an ordinary man who watches the legal system fail a young trafficking victim and decides he can no longer stand on the sidelines. He forms a group. They go after the traffickers themselves. David, how much of Jack is you? Because I'm looking at your life and I'm seeing some very strong parallels right now.
I would say Jack is probably about 80% me. When I developed Jack, and actually when I developed all the characters, I spent about 3 months before I actually started writing, developing the main characters. And what I do whenever I'm writing about one of the characters, I actually put myself into their bodies, so to speak.
Okay.
How would they react? What would they say? What would they do based on the profile I created for them, based on the personality that I gave them? And with Jack, I gave him basically my personality. And Jack is, in the beginning, he's immature in a way, likes to joke around a little bit, but he takes things serious when it's time. And that's sort of me. I like to look at the brighter side of things. I'm not always serious, but I can get serious at times. And the same way with the other character, main character, Shaylin, and that was based off of Sharon, my late wife, her personality. And so I built those 2 main characters based around myself.
And if I'm not wrong, by book 3, Head of the Snake, the fight
Yeah.
goes global. The scale of what you're describing is enormous. So tell me, what has writing 3 books about human trafficking actually taught you about how this crime operates? And second question is, what do most people completely get wrong?
It really opened my eyes to how big it is. Human trafficking is outpacing drugs as far as income for these organizations, these gangs, these cartel organizations. You can sell a pound of or an ounce of cocaine for X number of dollars, but you can sell a human body over and over again for years. And found out the average lifespan for someone that is caught up in human trafficking is about 4 years.
Okay.
And
And
after that, what happens to them? A lot of times they disappear. There's one aspect of human trafficking a lot of people is not even aware of, and that's organ harvesting. And that's in book 4 that I'm working on addresses that aspect. That a lot of these people who are kidnapped and taken into human trafficking, once they've reached their expiration for the usefulness, then some of them are put into organ harvesting.
okay, that's really sad.
Yes, it
It
is.
is. And the age group about this trafficking. So, what is the age group? It's mostly the females, or the boys are also being taken?
The age group, from what I've gathered and talked to through guests on my show, the sex trafficking as young as 2 years old, all the way up to senior adults.
And the trafficking happens mostly to Southeast Asia, or which region, or where does it go?
Unfortunately, the United States is getting to be the top place for human trafficking. And the LGBTQ plus groups are the main targets for trafficking. Runaways,
Homeless?
homeless, they a lot of times get caught up into the human trafficking. Unfortunately, a lot of parents put their children up for trafficking
Why?
for exchange for drugs. They'll say, if you give me these drugs, then I'll let you have my child for an hour. And that's where a lot of 2-year olds, 3, 4, 5-year olds get caught up into the trafficking, is through their parents wanting to satisfy their drug addiction.
I want to say something here, David, because people think that these things only happen in third world countries.
No.
I know this do happen in the first world country like America,
Mm.
but the scale of this crime is so big, and it is now, I don't think it's limited to only one country or one region or one continent. It's everywhere because
Yeah.
these people are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you have sat across from law enforcement officers, survivors, anti trafficking experts, government officials on your podcast. I watched them, especially the FBI agent one. After all those conversations, I want to ask you something that I think is going to make some people uncomfortable, and I'm fine with it. What is a single truth about human trafficking? The one thing every single expert knows about it that the public is absolutely not ready to hear.
I would say that it doesn't happen like in the movies. There's no white van that pulls up and snatches your child off the street. That doesn't happen anymore.
How does
With
it
the
happen in
internet,
reality?
in reality, it happens in your home. It could be happening right now to your children through social media. through game apps. That's where the perverts are stalking your children now. They go in there and groom your child. It may take months to groom your child. They will sit there and they will pretend like they're another teenager or a young adult or whatever. And they'll get to know your child, know their weaknesses, know what's hurting them, know that, oh, my parents won't buy me this game, or they won't do this for me, or let me do this. They make note of this, and they'll sometimes offer that gift to that child. And then eventually that child gets attached to that predator and they become friends. And at some point, that predator talks that child into leaving and meeting them somewhere. And that's where they'll never be seen again.
I think that is so true. Earlier, these perverts, predators used to be physical. Like we used to see these people. Now everything is virtual. They're sitting somewhere on this planet and they're doing the brainwashing. They brainwash the kids so that the kid could get whatever he or she wants. And in return, then the exploitation happens.
Exactly.
David, I was also watching your podcast and I want to know how many types of human trafficking are there?
There's several. The most recognized is the sex trafficking. You got labor trafficking. You've forced marriages is one. Child soldiers, you see that a lot. Some third world countries or
There it happens here.
And a lot of times you see these young kids on the streets begging for money. They are a lot of times part of an organization. And they go out and get money and bring it back to their owner or pimp or whatever you want to call them. And they go out again. And that's one other form of trafficking. And people don't realize that. And of course, organ harvesting is another form of trafficking.
But the highest one or the top ranking would be the sex trafficking.
The most popular one, but I think the most abused one is labor trafficking.
And this labor trafficking comes from which country? Where is the source of this labor trafficking?
A lot of it in the United States or any country where you may have the need for cheap or free labor. It doesn't have to be the United States, some rich country. It could be any country that needs labor. And these people could be kidnapped from another country or locally and then forced into manufacturing, working as a maid or servant in some home.
So if that is what is being done right now in America, because you're in America right now, so I'm just taking that as an example.
Yes.
If the forced labor, we talk about forced labor, and if this small kids comes to America as a forced labor, so what is the law enforcement department doing over there? Because I'm very sure they're aware of it, what's going on. But why there are no steps being taken to take these kids back to their home country and take some steps against the perverts or the accused?
A lot of the problems is that law enforcement's just overwhelmed. There's so much crime out there, and not only just United States, but all over.
Yes.
And there's just so much law enforcement can do. And a lot of these kids, I'll use our southern border as an example. A lot of the kids, coming up through Mexico, South America, we were getting tens of thousands of people coming across the border every week. And to keep track of those is impossible. And a lot of the kids would come without adult supervision and they would just disappear. Now, where they went to, Who knows? My belief is, and others feel, that they were taken into trafficking, either sex trafficking, labor trafficking, working in the fields, working on crops, working in manufacturing. Not necessarily a large company, but maybe a small company would use them because they're not on the radar of law enforcement. They may only have 4 or 5 people working for them, and they may cook the books as far as, yeah, hey, we pay these people. We pay them, but in fact, they probably don't pay them.
Bonded labor kind of a thing?
But bonded labor. If you don't work, then we'll kill you.
I've been told that few kids were taken from Southeast country, could be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or any other country, as a bonded labor or forced labor. And it's not about the big farms or agricultural land. They've also been taken to some homes in America. It doesn't matter you're white, brown, or whatever you are in America. And they've been working in America as a maid or as a slave, if I put it in this way. I'm amazed that the law enforcement, they're not taking necessary steps, send these kids back home. I know they are overwhelmed because law enforcement people are just limited and the crime is happening, I don't know, 10 times, 20 times bigger than that. But there has to be some stringent rules in place because the system is so rigid, so tough to crack, especially countries like America. So despite that, David, it's still happening, which is a very sad story to know about it.
And the problem with the labor in the home, that's hard to track because a lot of times the victims, they live in the home and they're not allowed to go to school or go out. So there's no way for law enforcement to know they exist there. They don't pay taxes, they don't go to school, so there's no record of them even being in the home. And you can't just go knocking on the doors and asking, do you have someone here that's illegal?
Yeah, that's a sad story. I also know that people come to a third world country, get married, take their bride to a first world country, and that bride is not a bride anymore, and she works as a maid or as a labor, bonded labor on the land, but the forced labor or the maid in the house, and she's not allowed to go anywhere, as you rightly said. And it's very
Right.
difficult to track people like them because they're just not visible. They're not there for the world to know about it.
They basically disappear.
On the similar lines, David, let me ask you something very practical. You've said your advice to people is becoming aware of the dangers of human trafficking to you and your loved ones. That sounds simple, but what does awareness actually look like on any afternoon? What are the signs that a parent, a teacher, a neighbor could spot right now? What they are probably walking past without even knowing it?
As far as your children, watching their actions. Are they withdrawing from everything? Are they locking themselves in their rooms, not sharing like they used to? Those are some of the signs. Are they all of a sudden quick tempered? Are they wanting to be out late at night? They don't want you to know about their friends or what they're doing online. They're trying to keep their life private. Now, as a parent or adult, yeah, the children have rights of privacy to a point. And I asked this question several times, where do you draw the line as far as your children to protect their safety? And if they're living under your roof and they're not paying any of the bills, then you have every right as a parent to demand to know what they're doing behind closed doors. Who are their friends? As far as out on the streets, that's hard because you don't know the child. And I'm always looking around. Does that child with this adult, do they seem to fit together? Does that child seem to be attached to that adult? Or are they seem like they want to get away? Are they fearful? You can look at their
Social
expression on their face.
social media needs to be under control, or should
There
parent
needs
be watching it from the other side and see what their kids are doing?
both there needs to be, I think, more restrictions on social media, and parents need to be parents, not their best friend to their child. They need to be guiding their child. They need to be protecting their child. They need to be teaching their child. And they need to be teaching about this, what these predators do, how they come on to children, the warning signs that the child needs to be looking out for.
I think this is for the people who are watching this cast and have children. If you're a teacher or if you work in a community, what David just described is something you need to share with everyone. Every single person, I would say, so that person really understand the severity of the problem. David, I want to read you something that you wrote on your website, and it just struck me here because I think this is one of the most important sentences I have come across in a long time. You wrote, once a person escapes physically, the world assumes they are free. Emotionally, many never leave. And this is the word, emotionally, may never leave. I read that and I had to sit with it for a long time. When did you come to understand that? And did it change everything about how you tell these stories?
As we talked about earlier, physical pain heals. A broken bone, a bruise, they eventually heal and the pain goes away, and you may forget about it. You may think about it, oh, how you broke your arm or whatever, playing ball or whatever. But the emotional pain of being abused never goes away
It lasts for the lifetime.
for the lifetime. You can think about, oh, I broke my arm playing baseball, and it may bring up fond memories. But the memories of being physically abused, sexually, those memories, when they come up, are not pleasant memories. And they stay with you. Just imagine losing a child. When I lost Sharon, it's been almost 4 years or so. I still think about her every day, and it still hurts inside of me. And that
How
pain will never
old was Sharon?
go away. She was right at 60. She
Okay,
had just turned 60. We've been together about 10 years.
all right.
That emotional pain will never go away. I remember the good times and the great times we had together, but seeing her laying there in a coma for 2.5 years, that's a pain that will never leave me. And that's nowhere near the pain of someone who has gone through physical abuse, sexual abuse. That pain is probably 10 or 20 times or even more greater than the pain I went through losing Sharon, because it happened to them. And they'll always have that pain emotionally in their mind.
That's right. And the Sharon was the victim of the accident. The other side, did that person was ever caught and was he incarcerated?
He didn't leave the scene. He stayed. Nothing was ever done to him. To my knowledge, he never received a citation or anything, no jail time or anything. They let him go.
Okay. It happens in third world countries, but it happens in first world countries as well. That is not easy to digest, but it does.
Yeah, it does. And I don't think that Sharon got justice. Putting him in jail or whatever would not bring her back, would not ease her pain or anything like that. But he's out there walking around free. He's out there having fun, going on vacations, having a family. But what about Sharon's family? She's got two
Goodness.
kids and family. They suffer. They have to live, her parents are still alive. They have to live with losing their child for the rest of their life. And her sister and her kids will never see their mother again. But him,
Yeah.
he has kids, he has life, he works, he plays, and nothing happened
Does
to
he
him.
live nearby?
Not too far.
Not too far.
I've never spoke with him. He's never contacted me. He never
Mhm.
said he was sorry or anything.
There
It
was
was
no
just like
guilt, no regret.
no guilt or regret.
I think that is something what a lot of us understand intellectually, but you are describing it from inside. And that makes me want to ask you the question that you book circle around without ever fully resolving. Because I think that's the point. Here it is, David. Your books don't glorify what Jack and the Omega team do. You make the reader feel every single consequences of it. But David, I'm going to ask you the question that every reader of your book is secretly asking themselves. And I want your
Mm-hmm.
honest answer here, not the diplomatic one. When the legal system fails, David, and when a child is trafficked and the law looks the other way, is it ever okay for an ordinary person to step outside the law and take matters into their own hands? Where do they stand?
That is something that I struggled with when I started writing the books. But I put myself in the shoes of what if it happened to my child and the legal system failed? Would I want to seek revenge? And down deep inside, I said to myself, yes. When I actually saw a post today where in this prison, this one guy actually killed another prisoner. The prisoner who got killed was a child molester.
Okay.
And,
A pedophile?
and I, yeah, he was a pedophile.
Hmm.
And this other prisoner killed him. And I thought, that's great. I'm glad he did it.
That is what they deserve.
Yeah, they deserve that. And for what they put the children through, the rapes, the murders, and all like that. And that was something that I toyed with and had struggled with when I wrote my books. That I knew it was going to be an issue with some people, vigilante, being a vigilante.
Yeah.
But if someone is guilty without a shadow of doubt, they're caught red handed, and there's no doubt whatsoever that they were guilty of molesting this child or whatever. They got caught with the child in the process of molesting him. And for some reason, some judge or lawyer drops the ball, or even law enforcement. They may forget to cross a T or dot an I on their paperwork, which I address several of the books. And that person gets off on a technicality. That's not right. And I know that the law is there to protect the innocent. And a lot of times guilty people get off. As a parent and a grandparent, if that were to happen to my child or my grandchild, I would want street vengeance,
That's right.
street justice. And years ago, they used to do that,
An eye for an eye.
eye for an eye. And especially when it comes to children, they're innocent and they shouldn't have to suffer like that. They shouldn't have to worry about some pervert taking them from their family and using them for some kind of toy. Children should worry about your dating and their friends and going to the
Sleepovers,
yeah,
movies,
yeah,
parties.
going to parties, movies. What am I going to dress like going to the movie? Or what is my boyfriend or girlfriend going to think about this outfit? No, that's what they should be thinking about, not worrying about some pervert out there. And unfortunately, it's a supply and demand. And that's why it's growing so much here in the United States, because we are a rich country. And these traffickers, they know that they can make a couple $1,000s a night
These
or a day
traffickers, David, are they from US or they're from Latin America or the third world countries?
from all over.
From all over. Because at the end of the day, it's money.
Exactly.
Who is who and from what or from where they belong to. Money is a dirty game anywhere on this planet.
Yes, it
David,
is.
you have said that finding the time to write and to podcast is your biggest challenge. And you said sometimes you don't get time for a work life balance. So let me ask, what keeps you going on the days when the weight of this subject matter and the grief about your wife and the exhaustion all arrive at the same time? What is the thing that gets David back to the desk?
I guess it would be hoping what I produce in my books or the podcast might open the eyes of someone and save them from falling victim to a predator. That's what I think about when I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I've got my regular job that I do. I'm trying to write book 4. I'm working on a podcast. I'm doing all this research. I have guests coming in like you on your podcast. You got to do research on them. That's what do I do? And sometimes I just have to sit back and take a day off and just chill. I've done this week, and I just sat down and just took a day to myself. So, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to relax and just recharge my batteries. And then tomorrow I'll jump back into the fight.
So, what do you do on a relaxed day?
I watch TV.
Okay. Any
I,
movies?
I like action movies.
Which one? Any favorite actor?
I like the John Wick movies.
Oh, John Wick. Okay, long time.
Yeah, I like those type movies. I like to watch some law enforcement shows. I watch
Yeah.
some those series, FBI and things like that. And a lot of times it gives me some ideas. And I'll be watching something trying to get my mind off of the evils of the world, and then a show will pop up about trafficking, and I'm going, I can't get away from it. And I guess it's God's way of saying, hey, I put you here for this. And doing the research for my books were very hard too. And I wanted everything to be as close to real as I could. Some of the research I did kept me up at night, just learning and going to these places and learning about how these predators actually work and think. It was hard. And there was several times where I cried.
That answer is going to stay with me, and I hope it stays with everyone watching. I want to close with one final question, maybe last 2 questions, David, and then I want to make sure every single person watching knows how to find you and how to support your work. But before that, David, as per you, and in your opinion, what best could be done so that child trafficking could be eliminated, could be removed from the word go?
Bringing it from the darkness into the light. A lot of people don't want to listen to it. I was at a book signing several weeks ago, and this lady came up, asked me what my books, the Lego book series, was about. I said, it's about human and child trafficking. And she just threw her arms up and said, I don't want to hear about it. And she just put her hands over her ears and said, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to address it. And she just turned and walked away. And I thought to myself, that's the problem. People don't want to hear about it. They think
Not going to happen with them, with their children or
exactly.
grandchildren?
It happens so much. In the United States, there's over 30,000 kids that's reported disappear every year. That's a small town. Just imagine even a football stadium or soccer stadium or whatever. That's everybody in that stadium plus disappearing off the face of the earth, never to be heard from again. And those people, they need voices. And that's what I've tried to do is bring their voices out and hopefully get people aware of what's going on. And not only the guests I have that come on, I also have training, talk about CSAM. That's another issue that is growing big with the AI, where a predator can go out to a park. It could be an amusement park or a city park or off the internet, off of Facebook, and get a picture of your child. And they can take your child and put it into an AI program and make that child to do sexual things. They can have the child head put on another body.
Yes.
A new sex trafficking and all like that is not always physical. A lot of times it's mental. And I did an episode on a group called 764, which your listeners should check into that. That
Yeah,
was
I'll put the
started
link
back
in the
during
description.
that was started by some teenagers back in COVID, and they do some awful things. They're worldwide, and they will go into your social media of your child and become friends with them and get them to do sick and perverted things. They'll blackmail your children. They'll talk your child into sending them a risky photo of themselves, maybe naked or whatever. And they'll say, if you don't go out and commit this crime, we're going to show this to your parents. And they've had a lot of kids commit suicide, self-mutilation, and even murder. And some of these shootings that are happening in schools here in the United States have been tied back to this group 764.
Yeah, and it's been happening frequently nowadays.
It has.
And David, final question. Someone is watching this right now. They
Okay.
have heard everything you have said. They are angry. They are moved. They want to do something, but there are one person sitting at home, and this problem feels so enormous that they don't know where to start. So, David, what is the single most important first step they can do today, not tomorrow, to fight human trafficking? And then tell us exactly where to find you.
To get involved, there's several groups throughout the world that are fighting human trafficking. I would say get involved with them, either through donations or volunteering. You can get involved. There's groups here in the United States, I'm sure groups in your area too, that are in need of help, either financially or physically, to get the word out. That is one of the problems, is getting the word out. Getting, like I said earlier, getting this dark crime into the light. And where more and more people know about it and are looking for signs, then that's going to help.
And where can people find you?
I've got a website. It's davidjstory.com. Very simple. My name, davidjstory.com, no spaces, just all one word. And there I've got a link to my books, my podcast, and I'm also working on a store also with items that can help protect your child or even an adult. I'm adding and making some adjustments to it now. It's fairly new. And I've also got a link there to my store that also does All Children Matter. It's a campaign that I've started. And it's shirts and hats and mugs and stuff like that, just to get the word out. I'm trying to get everything focused there. And I'm working on, as we speak, a website with all the contacts that a person can go to get help in human trafficking. Right now, I'm focused on the United States, and then I'm going to expand it to other parts of the country or world. I'm about a third of the way through. Every state in the United States has groups that help human traffickers or victims. And also we'll be putting out there training. There's a lot of churches, organizations that offer free training to learn about human trafficking. That's also going to be there. And that's one thing I think people could personally get involved in is going through the training. It's free. Learn about it, and you'd be surprised at what you may see. It'll open your eyes to a lot of things. It may even open your eyes to your own children, and you may realize that, hey, something's up with them.
And I think all people wanting to know more about David, his website, davidjstory.com, his books, Omega series, his podcast, The Secret World of Human Trafficking, everything, all the details would be there in the description. So check out the link in the description below. And yeah, David, what you have built from the deepest loss imaginable, books, a podcast, a platform, a warning system, is a testament of what human beings are capable of when they refuse to let grief just be grief. You have turned it into armor, not yourself, for strangers, for people you will never meet. This is extraordinary. Thank you for being on this show, David. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.